Welcome to Truth Behind History. This is the channel where we dive deep into the moments that shaped our world, unpacking stories from the past and uncovering the truths you might not have learned in school. And today, we're talking about one of the most pivotal events in human history, World War II, and its major turning points. Let's set the stage, shall we? World War II, fought between 1939 and 1945, wasn't just any war, it was the war that spanned continents. Europe, Asia, Africa, every corner of the globe felt its impact. Think about it, countries that were half a world apart, like the United States and Japan, were locked in a battle that defined geopolitics for decades. It's what we call global stakes. This wasn't just about a few countries fighting over borders. It was a battle for ideologies, power, and the future of humanity itself. Now, let's talk battles. Ever heard of the Battle of Britain, or Stalingrad, or the D-Day landings? These weren't just footnotes in history books, they were game changers. If any one of these battles had gone differently, the entire outcome of the war could have shifted. Imagine a world where the Allies didn't storm the beaches of Normandy or the Red Army didn't hold the line at Stalingrad. Scary thought, right? And then there were the alliances. On one side, we had the Allies, nations like the USA, the UK, and the Soviet Union banding together. On the other, the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. These alliances weren't just teams, they were powerhouses of industry, technology, and manpower. But the way they worked together, or sometimes didn't, was a huge factor in how things played out. Over the course of this video, we'll explore how these global stakes, critical battles, and strategic alliances turned the tide of World War II. So grab a cup of coffee, or maybe a notebook, because you're about to get a crash course in history that you won't want to miss. And remember, history might be in the past, but its lessons? Oh, they're very much alive today. Now, let's talk about one of the earliest turning points of World War II, the Battle of Britain, fought from July to October 1940. This wasn't just any battle, it was the first major air campaign in history. Picture it, the skies above Britain filled with the roar of planes and the thundering of anti-aircraft guns. On one side, you had the Royal Air Force, the RAF, defending their home turf. On the other, the German Luftwaffe, trying to pave the way for Hitler's invasion plan, codenamed Operation Sea Lion. Germany thought they could bomb Britain into submission, but the RAF had other ideas. Two key moments defined this battle: Operation Sea Lion itself, where the Luftwaffe aimed to dominate the skies, and the Blitz, a period of relentless bombing over British cities. It wasn't just soldiers fighting, civilians were on the front lines too, enduring nightly air raids in bomb shelters. The outcome? A decisive British victory. The RAF held their ground, forcing Hitler to abandon his plans to invade the UK. This was more than just a win for Britain, it was a statement to the world. It showed that Nazi Germany could be stopped, and it gave hope to the Allied forces. This battle wasn't just about planes and bombs, it was about resilience, strategy, and sheer determination. It's a reminder that sometimes, victory starts by holding the line. Alright, let's keep this momentum going as we dive into the next pivotal chapter of the war. Next up, the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the most brutal and significant clashes of World War II. It raged from August 1942 to February 1943 and was fought in the streets, buildings, and ruins of the city itself. This was urban warfare at its most savage, Soviet forces against Nazi Germany in a fight for control over Stalingrad. Now, why was Stalingrad so important? For Hitler, capturing the city was symbolic, it bore Stalin's name, after all, and strategic, as it was a gateway to the oil-rich Caucasus region. For the Soviets, holding Stalingrad wasn't just about defense, it was about survival. The turning point in this battle was the Soviet counteroffensive, which encircled the German Sixth Army in a devastating maneuver. Imagine an entire army, hundreds of thousands of troops, cut off from supplies, surrounded in a frozen wasteland. The Germans were outmaneuvered, outgunned, and, ultimately, outlasted. The outcome? A decisive Soviet victory. For the first time, Hitler's forces suffered a catastrophic defeat, marking a turning point on the Eastern Front. From this moment on, the German war machine was in retreat, and the Soviets began pushing westward. Stalingrad wasn't just a battle, it was a symbol of resilience and the staggering human cost of war. It reminds us that sometimes, victory comes at a heavy price. Now, let's keep moving and see how the war shifted on other fronts. Now, let's jump to June 6, 1944, D-Day, the Normandy invasion, and one of the most ambitious military operations in history. This was Operation Overlord, the largest seaborne invasion ever attempted. Imagine the scale: over 156,000 Allied troops crossing the English Channel, backed by thousands of ships and aircraft. The invasion targeted 5 key beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. Each one had its challenges, from heavy German fortifications to rough seas. At Omaha Beach, in particular, Allied forces faced intense resistance, but their determination and coordination ultimately broke through. This wasn't just about gaining a foothold in Europe, it was about creating a Western front to push back against Nazi Germany. The success of D-Day meant that the Allies could begin liberating occupied Europe, city by city, and it marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime. D-Day is often remembered for its bravery, its complexity, and its sheer audacity. It's proof that teamwork, strategy, and sacrifice can overcome even the most daunting odds. Alright, we're heading into the final stretch of this historical journey. Let's keep going. Now, let's compare the strategic importance of these key battles and see how each one contributed to the Allied victory. First, the Battle of Britain. This wasn't just a defensive win, it secured Britain as a base for Allied operations. Without Britain holding its ground, there wouldn't have been a launchpad for the D-Day invasion, and the war in Europe could have taken a very different turn. Next, the Battle of Stalingrad. This was where the tide turned on the Eastern Front. The Soviets not only stopped the German advance but began pushing them back, weakening the Axis powers significantly. Stalingrad broke the myth of Nazi invincibility and forced Hitler onto the defensive. And finally, D-Day. By opening up the Western Front, the Allies put Germany in a two-front war, stretching its resources and accelerating its defeat. Without D-Day, the liberation of Europe would have been far more difficult and much slower. Each of these battles was critical in its own way, whether it was holding ground, halting an advance, or taking the fight to the enemy. Together, they formed a chain reaction that led to the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. We've got one more key point to cover, so stick with me as we wrap this up. And now we arrive at the legacy of World War II, how it shaped the modern world and what lessons it left behind. First, let's talk about military innovations. World War II completely transformed the way wars are fought. Advances in air power, urban combat, and amphibious warfare, like the D-Day landings, became game-changers. These innovations laid the groundwork for modern military strategies and technologies we still see in use today. But innovation came at a staggering price. The human cost of World War II was unimaginable: millions of lives lost, cities reduced to rubble, and generations scarred by the trauma of war. The global impact of this loss pushed humanity to reconsider how we address conflict and diplomacy. And that leads us to the post-war order. Out of the ashes of war came international institutions like the United Nations, created to prevent future conflicts and maintain peace. It was an ambitious attempt to ensure that the horrors of World War II would never be repeated. So, what's the takeaway here? World War II wasn't just a conflict, it was a catalyst for change. It reshaped nations, ideologies, and the global balance of power. And most importantly, it left us with a clear reminder: the cost of war is far too high. If you've enjoyed this dive into the turning points of World War II, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Truth Behind History. Let me know in the comments which part of this story fascinated you the most. And if you're hungry for more history, check out my other videos. We've got plenty more stories from the past that shaped the world we live in today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.